This is Mission 3. Mission 2 is just a tutorial, so I'm going to skip that. For this run, I'm bringing the stun arm, even though I don't use it. And the Burkov TB, which is the tranquilizer version. There's an upgraded Burkov that has an integral silencer. That means it's an infinite silencer. However, it's too expensive, although I think it could technically fit within the requirements. I think it's only like around 8,000 GMP. Nevertheless, too expensive for what I need to do, and I'm not going to be using the trank that much. Anyway, there's just one thing that's a little easier to do once we get started. You'll also notice that I don't have a helicopter intro. That's because Infinite Heaven lets you turn off helicopter intros from the ACC, which basically makes it like a land infiltration. So I've enabled those because the helicopter rides are just a waste of time, especially if you're trying to restart a mission a lot. So the first step is going to be to have D-Horse take a poop on the road. This is tactically vital. You might be able to hear it, but there's a vehicle approaching. What happens is the recon detachment that Ocelot warns you about is actually not physically present in the village yet. They have to drive in, and then they meet with the commander in the courtyard. And after that, they'll go and they'll guard the entrances to the compound, which makes it much harder to get into. While I'm waiting on them, I'm trying to get a mark off on two guys that wander up here from the village. They just kind of wander along this road. And I do want to make sure that they don't find out what's going on over here, which is that these guys have just spun out from the poop. They're temporarily dazed. However, they will eventually break out of it. What I should have done is just left them asleep. I have no reason whatsoever to interrogate them, but I do anyway. I'm not going to use this information for anything, and asking them to mark other people is useless because there's no one nearby. Nevertheless, I do it anyhow. And then I realize, oh wait, I have to actually have these guys in the Jeep, which I actually don't. I could have just left them like this. But I wanted to, because it was fun, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm going to knock them all out again, and put them in the Jeep, which is mostly just killing time until those guys wander up the road. The idea here is that if somebody is placed in a seat or in an object, like a porta-potty, a dumpster, something like that, they never wake up. I think it's a game convenience thing so that people that you're driving around don't randomly wake up on you. But basically, as long as somebody's either stunned or asleep, go ahead and put them in, and they will never wake up. Their timer appears to just kind of stop in the meantime, so no one's ever going to wake those guys up unless they find them. And what I'm going to do is trank these two so that they don't find them, and so that they don't wander back to the village at an inopportune time. The Burkov, especially this Burkov, the upgraded version has better iron sights, but this one has pretty bad iron sights compared to the regular trank pistol. But it is an automatic, which is good against guys with soft armor like that first guy, because you can just take a couple of shots to the legs to put them down. Now the trank won't last very long, but since I'm waking them up and holding them up, that'll keep them down indefinitely. It's just a habit I have, because I like to have them mark other people, but in that case it was useless. I just needed them to stay down for the duration of the mission. What I'm doing now is just going to mark as many people as I can, take some Nocticyanin, so that I can see everybody a little easier. And what I'm going to do is I've noticed as I'm looking at these patrols and the people that are stationed where they are and the fact that the recon team is out of commission and will never be arriving. There's the commander right there. Basically, knowing all this, I know an approach that will allow me to get in. The thing about daytime infiltrations is that while they are harder because enemies have much better sight in the day, and sight is definitely their most potent sense, you have an advantage in that during the day they tend to be less active. At night they tend to patrol around more, and when they're standing around under lights and other things like that, or near sensitive equipment. During the day, they're often assigned to a post, sometimes a very distant post, and they just kind of stand there and look in a direction. So as long as you have a way to circumvent them, you won't have any issues. So my plan now is I was going to climb up the ladder and get that guy, and I could just climb up and trank him, but I want to do a fun takedown, so I'm waiting for him to cross over to the other side here. Now you might also notice that some of these guys have better equipment, better armor, better Some of them were wearing gas masks, things like that. Some of that is the readiness system, and I'm well into the end game and have very high readiness for a lot of things. But another reason is just Infinite Heaven allows you to remove some of the early game safeguards that are put in here, basically to make the early missions not be crazy if you did a lot of free roam. In this case, I've disabled that and added some custom presets and things like that, so you will see enemies with heavy armor, enemies with, like that guy on top of the tower above the commander. I don't know if you can see him now, but when I was looking at him in the InScope, I could clearly see that he was a heavy armor guy. Those guys often don't appear. You'll also see that guy has a rocket launcher on his back. Rocket launchers rarely spawn. I increased the rate of that so that you can do some OSP on that, which might be useful in a couple of missions with vehicles, such as Back Up, Back Down, and a few others. But because I intercepted the recon detail, there's nobody really in the courtyard or watching that approach that I just took, and nobody's going to come in here. There's a guy who patrols around the outside, but otherwise people are pretty spread out because it is the daytime, so that is the advantage. There's guys, there's eyes everywhere, but they're all kind of looking outward. Now, for some reason, I think I brushed up against too close to him when I went into crawl. I went too late, so I managed to grab him just in time to avoid an alert. Now, you may wonder, okay, so he shouted contact, and I did a body slam. How did that guy above not hear that? The reason for that is that CQC is silent. Yeah, I don't know. It just is. It does not make noise. Doesn't matter if you're doing the 5-punch combo or something like that. People do not hear you doing CQC. You can CQC, like, combo somebody right behind a guy who's not facing them, and they will not notice a thing, unless they physically see you. So we're just going to sneak over here, call D-Horse, and then we're going to leave by land. I haven't done this one by land much. I usually just Fulton him, but I've disabled Fultoning prisoners, and although you can't disable Fultoning enemies, you're supposed to be able to with Infinite Heaven, but for some reason it doesn't work. I've just set it where I've just set a rule where I'm not going to Fulton. I also have the Fulton at level 1 to save on GMP. If I could disable it entirely, not have it cost anything, that'd be nice, but that doesn't seem to be an option. So, we're going to have to go quite a ways to get out of the infiltration area. Normally, if you complete an objective, the land exfiltration barrier will come in a bit, making it easier to get out. But in this case, since the guy is technically never in a state where we're sure if he's there or not until you've actually extracted him, unless you Fulton him or put him in a chopper, it's not going to matter. So I do have to get out on land, and you can eventually get out on land. It just kind of abruptly ends the mission, but it is considered to be a successful exit. So we've extracted him, although he's useless because his stats are terrible. And we're on our way.